Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Welcome again to Venture Cafe. I just want a quick show of hands. Has anybody here listened to the Uncommon Good podcast with Pauli Reese? Okay, we have a couple listeners. I myself am a big fan. It is a local Philly-based podcast with Pauli Reese. I'm going to hand it over and let them introduce themselves and the guests that they have featured here tonight at Venture Cafe. In the meantime, we do have some seating up here, so please feel free to come over to the cafe space. It's going to be a nice, intimate conversation, or feel free to listen in the cafe, but I will let Pauli take it from here.
Thank you for the 2 people who raised your hands, and thank you for the 3 people who raised their hands in the chat. Very grateful for you. So if you've listened to the show or seen us on YouTube or Instagram, thank you. Thanks for hanging out and having a drink with us tonight as we sort of like work through some questions. We are also streaming on YouTube, so thank you to the chat. Thank you y'all who are here. If you are here on YouTube and hanging out with us, let me actually get in frame so that you can see me too. Hi YouTube. If you are here on YouTube and joining us, let us know where you're chatting in from. That's kind of awesome. But the project of the show, of Uncommon Good with Pauli Reese, which is taped here in University City. We tape live here in person upstairs on 7th at Brigantine Studios. But the project is to be able to have conversations about the things that bring us together, that we share in common as human beings. Our origin stories, the things that help us sort of refill the wellspring of like hope and joy and excitement. Because a lot of times these are things that are not necessarily 100% like renewable resource. It has to come from somewhere. And things are hard regardless of where you stand on political or ideological spectrums. So like that sense of like resilience, I hate the R word, is important. And then the third thing comes from a place of impact. The work that we're all doing together, what sort of impact do you want to make in the world? So we talk with everybody from across a broad spectrum of different professions, different stages in their career, different sizes of sphere of influence. Today we're really excited to bring to you a guest that I met randomly in a seminar called Visual Storytelling at the Yale School of Drama, taught by a person called, Blessed Wendell Harrington, who's a teacher of projection. But this person, among other things, you've seen her work on A&E, on Bravo Network, on VH1. She is the White House presidential videographer for folks like Barack Obama, folks like Joe Biden. She worked on the campaign for Elizabeth Warren, and most recently she came off of time working with Kamala Harris. So I'm very delighted to introduce you to the person that I know best as who gives the best hugs, Hope Hall. Hope, it's really nice to get to sit and chat to you a little bit. Because I feel like all of this sort of back and forth are we're like 5 minutes at the end of like a session, or like I remember we were at the launch of Solar Myth a couple weeks ago, and there's all of this incredible music happening from your friend and namesake surname Charlie Hall from War on Drugs. So it's nice to get to just like sit with you and actually chat a little bit.
Well, it's an honor to be here, and also I want to invite anyone who wants to be part of the conversation to come in, because I really love when it's a working session. I learn best from navigating whatever it is that is going on with other people. And so I would really love this to be a way that we can, anyone who's here can talk about what it is that they're grappling with, what they're wrestling with, what's confusing them right now. So, and I also have a handout, which at some point we'll take like a little break and everyone can like take a minute to look at it. But it, I think is a good prompt for, we'll talk, you and me.
No, please, go ahead.
But then I think it's a good prompt and a way to get you all involved in the conversation. So, hello, and thank you.
Hi, friends. Thank you indeed. And thank you to the very light, efficient technology that it's shutting on and off as we sit and like get a little more still. Thank you to the YouTube people. We've got a Bala Kinwood person. We've got someone here from the neighborhood in Philly of East Falls. And we've got my favorite shout out to Melissa Martin, who says that she's streaming in from Queens, New York, specifically a laundromat.
Well, also I was going to say, because the physical handout is here, and I sign each one and bless each one. But for those who aren't physically in Philly with us tonight, you can reference this at hopehall.com/mindset.
Yep.
So I call this my mindset handout. So I invite anyone who is watching to pull that up and reference it. And I would love to hear, again, I would love to make this a working session so that we're all having a conversation rather than us delivering our thoughts to you. And again, I think the mindset handout can be a really nice prompt for that. So
I should say about the mindset prompt. So again, that's hopehall.com/mindset. Okay. I think what I really like about that is that you gave me one when we met during the session, and it has all of the sorts of thoughts that, as a creator, are the ones that I need when I'm like not in my body. And while folks are sort of processing and figuring out where to sort of settle in, I would love to know where the generation, what the genesis of the mindset handout came from.
Well, so I had the best job ever at the time. Turns out there was an even better job awaiting me in the future. But at the time, I was like, this is the best job ever. I am the first videographer at the White House. Barack Obama created the position. I had worked on the campaign. He was never going to win, but we had to work and do everything we could just in case it was possible.
Yeah.
And then everything changed, and I worked on transition, and then the person who hired me actually created the position, but then burnt out pretty quickly. And so I came on, and I was like, I never thought I would set foot in the White House. I definitely never thought that I would work there. So I felt like every day felt like a dream. And 6 months in, and I will say, every work environment is challenging, but I had been an autonomous individual since a teenager, and I'd never worked on a team before.
Yeah.
And I really struggled with the bro culture. I often walked into rooms filled with men in suits and felt unwelcome. Understandably, because the risk aversion is real. I have a video camera. No one's used to the conversation being recorded. They're used to photographers. But this was the first president to have videographers. So there was no precedent, and it made people very uncomfortable.
Yeah, the last time that I remember that of notable presidential history, it, well, not forced, but I suppose prompted a resignation.
As it should.
Yeah.
But that's what's at stake, right? So instead of open arms, which is what I was used to, you know, when you're freelance, it's like you fight hard to get a job, and then you feel like, oh, I'm welcome here. I won this job. I got this job. It's going to be complicated because, you know, jobs are complicated. Work is complicated. But I hadn't felt unwelcome in a room. And that was really, really hard. I also worked side by side with someone who was a misogynist bully. And physically psychologically and in any other way possible, tried to make it so that I couldn't succeed at my job. And it was really hard. And 6 months in, I was like, can I swear on this?
Oh, of course you can.
Fuck this. Like, this is so hard. I'm working 15 hours a day for, like nothing. I left my whole life to do this. I believe in the work, but I'm not a federal employee. There's someone else who can do this, who will be very happy doing it. I'm an artist, right? And then I thought, or I could use this. Challenging situation as my guru. So I did. And that's where the mindset handout came. Because I thought, well, it's sort of like that, I don't know if any of you have ever gotten this advice in a relationship that you want to make work but don't know how to make work.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Like, you're already in, so do everything you can to learn and grow. Try to make it what you need and want it to be before you leave. And that's what I did. It's like reverse engineering from feeling great about where you spend your day, how you spend it, who you spend it with. And the mindset handout is basically like what I learned trying to make a shitty situation good, so that I felt like every day I could show up and be literally like, I'm so glad I'm here. And that's life, right? I mean, not to get too, but like, we're in it now. We've been in it. But I think we're collectively feeling, how do we make this, how do we care for one another? How do we make this soft and gentle instead of hurtful and unnecessarily painful?
As we were catching up while you were blessing handouts, one of the things that came up in our conversation was it doesn't have to be this hard and it doesn't have to be this way. And I think of the mentors that I've had, you are probably the one who has sort of shaken all of that thinking down and put it into the Post-it note, like my old one, my old one hanging on the fridge. I mean, it'll have its younger sister by the end of the night. I wonder, one of the words that has a sort of and I think this is the last question for now before we start inviting more conversation from the gathered. But I have mixed feelings about the word resilience, because it was like so many of our friends who are working in medical, who are working in education, who are working in food service, and who are working in essential spaces, and students have been through like an incredible amount of shit the last couple of years, right? But I think this idea of figuring out like how not to let the wellspring run dry is really important. And one, I just want to say thank you, because you're one of your handout as an agent of yours is one of the things that sort of helps me. But also two, I want to ask, can you tell me where the mindset to be able to think that way Can you trace? Are there anything like from like your origin story, your history, the genesis of Hope of Esperanza, as you told me in our chat, where the mindset comes from?
Well, I referenced that at the time it was the best job ever, but then I reframed, because then really the best job ever came into my life, which was working with Senator Elizabeth Warren as her videographer.
Yeah.
And she created, as opposed to the bro culture with, you know, putting up with bullying and, excuse me, hierarchy, she created a team that was deeply committed to resistance. And it's so complicated because you think, well, as an optimist, I'm like, I don't want to resist. Like, I want to go for, but you have to stand up against injustice. You have to. And I think that was the part that I like suddenly felt like, oh, I can say no. Oh, I can say that's not okay, not just for me, but for this like. And so resilience, I think, is an incredibly beautiful idea, and especially in nature, you can watch it happen every day.
Yeah.
But for human beings, I think one of the things that, you know, we navigate is we're not just roots. I'm a big plant nerd, so excuse me, I'm going to use a lot of botanical references, but we're not just roots and experience. And I'm not minimizing the botanical experience, but as humans, we create stories. And I think one of the hardest parts about humans feeling like they need to be 100% resilient all the time is that what about the rubber banding of experience that teaches you how to learn and grow, how to tell the story, how to share it with someone else, and how to care for other people. And I think that is where the strength of a righteous fighter like Senator Elizabeth Warren comes from, is that it is about, it's gonna sound so hokey, forgive me, I apologize, but
No, do it.
it's about linking arms.
Yeah.
We are stronger together,
Yeah.
and we learn, this is why we don't work alone.
Yeah.
I mean, bless the hermits out there. I totally understand. You know, the compulsion to go, you know, keep a year of solitude and or 10 days of silence or whatever. These are important parts of our nervous system that need to re-regulate through quiet and through lack of interaction.
Yes.
But I feel the power of, I have felt the most powerful in my life when I have deeply interacted with other human beings. Not just for my own exploration, but in defense and ferocity for them.
Yeah. The
Getting
thing
a
that
little weepy.
yeah.
because the ferocity comes from there is suffering that should never happen again. Should never happen again. Not on my watch.
Yeah. So the thing that struck me when we first met was, and we're getting a nod. We're getting a nod from John. John over here, is sort of like giving us like the head nod and like yeah. For me, the thing about ferocity and the ending of suffering and potentially the preemption of the suffering of others in the future is that I don't know that like as human beings, as like creatures of this beautiful planet that we live in, that we're made for that. I don't know that if there is an intention for the way that we live, I don't know that that's the intention. At least in the way that we reliably both in ourselves, in our own work, but then by also by the way that others impact us, I don't know that we're designed to experience as much pain as we constantly do.
Well, maybe that's part of the design. Boom. Right? Like, limitation is...
Say more.
Yeah, is how we grow.
Yes. Oh boy, yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Just here to mess with you.
Yeah. Well, you're reminding me of my limitations with and that we talked about, and I've talked about on the show before, but car accident and house fire back in 2021, and for me that's sort of this like marking of time where like a person can choose to be resentful of limitation, or even as you talked about, and you do a great job of talking about it in your chapter in the book, in the West Wingers book, which I was delighted to find out that you read your own chapter in the audiobook on Audible, and I was like, it's kind of like she's in the room. But the thing that you chose is that you chose to pay attention to it, allow it to be creative, and then to create around it, and to, as you do, to give it a big old hug, like from top to bottom, as opposed to like treating it like an unruly youngest sibling. And I just, that's not common. That's not common.
Yeah, I mean, again, back to that sort of reverse engineering from how do I figure out how to not run away from a situation that I really want to be in. I have to turn it into my teacher.
Yeah.
And I think that's, that does take, how do I put it? There's got to be some safe ground for that to happen, and we don't always have that, and that's okay. Like, I think that's one of the things you and I were talking about before, is that right now we're not experiencing safe or solid ground, and it hasn't been safe and it hasn't been solid. So for us communally to then start to talk to each other about how to both rebuild and then acknowledge, but also interpersonally reweave. So it's like I have this image in my mind of a fabric, like the fabric that if you're not a hermit, if you live in a society, hopefully you have some version of a fabric that will catch you when you fall.
Yes. The only thing I'll say to that is I take exception for Mondays. Mondays are my sort of like hermit recharge, sort of like comfy clothes and gravity blanket day.
That's your hermit, like day of silence or whatever.
Yes, exactly.
Which
Yeah.
other people do other rituals like fasting or
Right.
you know, an epic, walk or like seeking a
The
ritual.
Camino de Santiago de Compostela, like the what was it, Saint Bede? Don't hurt me, Christopher Bealey. His journey from the mainland England to Holy Island.
Some people don't know that Pauli is a sacred scholar, so he's going to go into this sometimes. We don't. I have no idea what you were
No, but like the pilgrimage is like the long walks. So there's that one in Spain that goes through Spain, the Camino de Santiago, and then continues into Portugal.
Okay.
There's one in northern England, none of which is particularly relevant, but like the idea of like pilgrimage and whatever, journeying. The one particularly interesting thing for me is that one in through Spain and through Portugal, in a certain era of history, which of course I've forgotten, it was used as a sentencing for violent offenders instead of imprisonment. Like to have a journey, to have a physical journey of inner like spiritual transformation. But yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
This seems like a good moment to do the handout.
I love it.
Right.
Like let's pass some handouts.
Can you guys just pass this around to each other? Thank you.
And the chat says thank you for the handout as well.
Oh, good.
They're saying, yeah. As we're sort of like in a break sort of space, and feel free to pass them like back through the cafe. Good to see you, friends back there. But pass them back through the cafe. Like if you need a little daily dose of goodness on your fridge, a reminder that the world is, even if the world isn't going to be okay, things will still be okay, and also that it's not to be okay. I would say this is your resource for that. Yeah.
So I just want to, now that we're sort of in this natural break, I just want to reiterate, I love learning alongside my blessed humans and friends, and at times plants, I'll admit it. So I really do want to make this a working session. So we are happy to continue, like we could talk for days, but please do just raise your hand, interrupt, send questions online.
Yeah.
Because I learn alongside you. So again, it's a selfish request, but if there are things that you're grappling with, if there are things we can maybe try to untangle together, that would make me very happy. But I'm not here to request that you make me happy. I'm just here to offer that as a potential way to work together. Because, again, we're not hermits.
I am going to add a slight addendum. This is Appendix C. I am here to ask you to make Hope happy. But so any random thoughts? I know that this is a very high sort of like entrepreneur, innovator, like working through a question, idea, or a problem space. I would love to pass you the mic and work on that a little bit, because the stream has heard plenty of me talk, and I don't know. I mean, probably don't need to hear like a whole lot more, but we will talk. I mean, yeah. But you're burning daggers into my face, so yeah. Like you're staring, And now you're laughing. Say what? Oh, that's...
Well, do you have any things that you're grappling with that you could share?
I'm under over a little bit. I'm going to ask you to come sit in the front row while we're chatting so that we can see you on camera, so that our listeners who have a little bit of a vision impairment can, or excuse me, a little bit, or hard of hearing can see your lips moving. Okay?
Hi, how are you guys? My name is Sky. I'm actually an entrepreneur. I am a videographer.
Skylar, hold your mic.
Hello.
Hold your mic up to your face.
Yeah, alright, gotcha, I'm sorry. So I do videography for mainly events, conferences, things like that. My business partner, someone else is behind me.
Come on.
Oh, come on up. As an entrepreneur, I mean, first off, I want to say, like, respect. That was amazing. Like, your story is great. It's amazing. You've broken so many glass ceilings, and I respect you so much. And it's me coming from someone in my position in life. I sit there and I like marvel at the fact that that you can work your way up to be in the White House. That's amazing. And we started this when we were 19 in school. We were in college and had a little dream and all that. And I'm sure you can relate to a dream and a vision as an artist. There's still points to this day where we hit a little bit of a breaking point. Like right now we're waiting on some very big news from some very big clients. And this sounds a little surface level and cheesy, so I'm sorry, but when you hit those points, right, where you think you're doing everything right, and you're there and you feel conscious of your decisions, you're like, yeah, this is right, but it's still kind of like unknown what's going forward. What do you use to motivate yourself?
That's such an incredible question.
Thank you.
Tell me a tiny bit more about what you're waiting for.
I don't want to sound too capitalist.
Tell us what you can say that's not covered by an NDA.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I care about many things more than money, but this is a very big deal that we're waiting on for our company. And we work very hard at this, and that's how we go forward. That's how the world works a little bit. It's just an opportunity that we haven't had before, and we did our best to get there. And we got in limbo. We're in limbo, waiting a little bit on what we do, but it's the motivation to go forward and how to handle yourself in these situations. Just in general. I don't mean to be too vague with this, but
It's okay. It's just you're not in charge anymore. You did your best, right?
of course.
So in the mode of we're all learning and growing all the time, whatever happens with this decision that is out of your hands, it sounds to me like, is just going to be a way for you to learn and grow. So the way to like sleep soundly tonight,
For the past 2 weeks.
Or the past
right, is to say it's all information. It's all, not to sound too like digital strategy, nerdy analytics, but it's all data. I mean, again, this is what plants do. Plants, all they do is grow and like look for the light, and it works or it doesn't work, and they hit like patches and they have to redirect. What you'll redirect. But the thing is to treat it like play. You're playing. How lucky are you? Right? And I don't mean to like put this, but like literally, how lucky are you? And your job as humans, as collaborators with me, I'm gonna throw this down. If you don't fucking take this as beautiful information to be able to learn and grow, do your thing more your version next time, whatever next time is. I'm gonna be.
All right. I'll give you my card.
I'm gonna kick your ass, okay? So literally, I mean, who knows? And a lot of times, yeah, I mean, many times decisions happen. First of all, again, it's completely out of your realm at this point, so let it go. But once it happens, and once you have time and space to be gentle, playful, curious, open with each other, with yourselves, with your family and friends, to say, damn, that was great, or damn, that sucked, or whatever, to like start to learn from it. That's what matters. To me, that's how you become more, you know, playful, flexible, gentle, loving, kind, interactive, interwoven, more of a community build. Like that's where the richness is. So I wish you well. I hope it works out. It seems like you want it to happen. I actually could care less about the outcome. Because what I care about is how it helps you become gentler, kinder, more interactive, loving, rooted, community building humans.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That was great.
Jacob, your partner, is your hype man.
Yes, I'm like.
No, but let's hear from you too, though. I mean, because I imagine you've probably got some thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah, I think definitely the advice to kind of take situations that's not necessarily looking at the outcome and looking at where you will end up no matter what happens is definitely a very interesting way to look at things, and something I definitely try to strive to do more. I definitely think sometimes in like high stress situations that's very hard to look at, because sometimes you look at things in like a make or break way when in reality sometimes it's not, and sometimes it's more of just the situation you're in. So thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, make or break is life or death, right?
Exactly. And not most things, if you're lucky and blessed, like day to day, that is not, yeah, agreed. Thank you.
Keep me posted.
Yeah, will do. Thank you.
Thanks, friends. Thanks for enriching our chat. Every excitement for your journey, whatever that looks like. I mean, I don't know what it looks like. I'm glad that you decided to come hang out today, though, and like enrich our learning. I have a little bit of a follow-up question. Oh no, there's John. So I don't have to ask it, which makes me feel even better. So here's John.
Hi, Ho. How are you?
Hi, John.
So I didn't get a chance to talk to you. I mean, but maybe I'll get a chance to talk a little bit more to you. So I was asking you about cinematography earlier. So I'm a visual artist. I do a little bit of photography. I'm really a painter and a sculptor. I've done some set design stuff for filmmakers. I've done that. However, like I'm very interested in doing some real cinematography stuff. I study film. I study a lot of filmmakers to see this is the design of the films, the lighting, other types of imagery in films. However, I really want to like work with a cinematographer and see what the real deal is behind this. So I believe in it. And so I didn't know that you were that sensitive about issues. I'm sitting here listening to you, and you're going over and you keep going back to issues in humanity. So, and I can understand the fact that you became a little bit emotional about it. That's very understandable to me. I'm very emotional about certain issues pertaining to this country and around the world also. So, could you tell me what are you trying to capture in cinematography? What's your idea of like what are you really trying to capture? That's what I really want to know. Okay?
Okay, thank you, John. I'm gonna start this with just a meta thing, a verbal thing. I'm a language person. So I'm working on switching up the language around my craft, and specifically making it as inclusive and gentle as possible.
Okay.
So I invite you to think about maybe capture, switching that up, and collaborate.
Switching what up?
Capture.
Okay.
And shoot. So there's a lot of violent language in the craft of what I do.
Okay.
Specifically as a cinematographer, there still aren't very many women. And
Right.
I feel, so that is an invitation without being yeah. So I consider what I do to be a collaboration with whoever
Okay.
it is that I'm working with. Because literally, it would be different if it was a different person filming it,
That's right.
right?
That's right. That's right.
And every time, the more time and the deeper the relationship gets, you can feel that in the footage.
Yes, you can.
There's,
I've seen that before.
it's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I consider what I do to be collaborative. And one of the things that was sort of early on in my freelance life that I had to grapple with and realize, and this is earlier, like 2 decades ago, now things have changed in that media literacy is really focused on the visual arts. So everyone's a filmmaker, and I love that. But 2 decades ago, one of the things I really had to grapple with was the power dynamic of being the person who was, just to go back to the language, capturing someone's story.
Right.
And realizing that I was in a position of power and that I needed to actually deeply acknowledge what that position of power is and put it into our relationship and let it deepen our relationship instead of, but the problem is, I'm not a self-funded, I'm an autonomous freelance person, but I didn't have the luxury of being able to say, I need 5 days to do this,
Right.
or 6 weeks to build this relationship in order for you to get what you're talking about that you want. And so there was a lot of navigating in the beginning, like, I gotta get the tears, I gotta get the drama, I gotta get the laugh, you know, right? You gotta get it, because you're there to get something. And now I'm in this position, I'm not a huge Malcolm Gladwell fan, but there is this amazing thing that they talk about, which is the 10,000 hours. And I now have the comfort of having spent more than 10,000 hours behind the camera. So it's a part of my body. And what that allows me to do with each hour is be less and less fucking freaked out about the tech. Aperture, shutter stop, white balance, like always feeling like I'm in the wrong room, I'm pointing the camera in the wrong way, trusting. And that allows me to build a relationship.
Right.
And that's the story. That's the film. That's the footage. That's the emotion. Like, I'm not a robot. I'm not I'm a human being in this room. Back to the, Obama bro thing, I'm a woman I'm the only woman in this room. And I am done pretending that I am not here.
Right.
But until you have the technical, it's complicated because, right? It's a deeply technical process. But that's one of the things that makes it so powerful. The reason it's so deeply technical is because it's actually trying to replicate human experience through the melding of sound and picture, which no one else has figured out how to do yet. I mean, there's VR, very, very amazing, but also not accessible to most people, deeply nauseating most of the time. So the closest thing humans have to replicating and feeling actual compassion for and putting themselves in someone else's shoes is the melding of sound and picture and the relationship between the two. So
I think you have to understand the human experience in order for you to document it and talk about it, then you have to have that experience under your belt. How do you get that? Then you have to be open to the human experience and humanity. So once you can get that under your belt, then you're more equipped to talk about that.
Yeah.
So that's just my thing. I really appreciate what you've been doing.
Thank you. It's also really fun to see what I love working with young people. So the cosign to the sign of what you just said is that for me, it's also really wonderful to see what young people make and do. Because first of all, media literacy is in their bones, in the bone marrow. It's their primary language.
Okay.
Some, and it's off the charts. But it's also to your point, totally adrift from what I don't know your age, but I'm going to assume is decades-long experience on this planet.
Pardon me?
Decades-long experience on this planet.
Okay.
So it's really interesting to see, anyway.
I would just, I'm just going to say that I would love to be able to take pointers from you and maybe even like do like a really brief, not such a collaboration with you, just to be like, maybe like to volunteer to work side by side with you for like a short period of time, or whatever that you can.
It would be an honor, John.
Okay, I would really appreciate that. Thank you. So,
Did you? I feel like you had a question too. Did you have a question?
Meredith, did you have a question as well? A thought? A musing? We know each other a little bit, so I'm doing a little bit of prompting.
Well,
But
I felt like you raised your hand at one
Yeah.
point. If I'm wrong, please forgive me. But
I didn't raise my
okay.
arm, but I was thinking about it. And I'm a little hesitant to share this. I don't know how meaningful it will be to the group, but all of you've talked to us a lot about this theme of letting experience be your teacher, making you gentler, making you kinder, making you more able to be in community, and letting limitation be your teacher, which the whole, chain of thought in my mind, because I'm living with the death of one of my children. And I think about it a lot, and it is the biggest teacher. This experience has been the biggest teacher of my life. And it has done all of those things. It has definitely made me a better person. It has all of the things that you were talking about, it has given me, but I would not say it has made my life better. There's just living with a lot of sadness. And I was thinking about kind of why that is in some ways, and I'm just thinking about the fact that there is always this meta-narrative in my life of I am the mother who lost a child, and I don't know how helpful that is, really, but it's always there. And that when I am really present with people, when I'm not lonely, and most of the time I feel lonely, like a piece is lost, been taken out of my heart, but when the people with me are able to be present with me and I'm able to be present with them, I am not lonely, and that's the time when the sadness isn't there. So it's not really a question, but I was just, these thoughts kind of stirred up in me as you were talking. I was really moved by what you had to say.
Thank you, and I'm really, really sorry for your loss. And we are in a time of challenges. And I think one of the things that hopefully that allows for us to do with you is to be with you in those challenges. Because I feel that one of the things that was hardest in the before times, is that there was suffering and dying and deep sadness all around me and in me, and it was not socially okay. So First of all, thank you for sharing what you said. Again, I'm so sorry for your loss. And I hope that we can create the interwoven structure, the support system for you. We can continue to make it stronger and more interesting and filled with bright colors, so that you can then continue to be that for other people who experience anything close to what you've experienced. And I think that's our job. And whether or not that becomes something that feels fulfilling for you, I just hope that we can at least create a map and a pathway so that we can be there for you, and then if you so choose, you can continue to pass it on. So thank you.
I always, when Sam first died, I used to say I felt like I had a big boulder of grief that was maybe from here down to my knees, this huge big rock, and I would come up to a group of people and I would plop on this big boulder of grief. And it just stopped normal conversation. In a sense, it was like performance art. You didn't know what was gonna, I never knew what was gonna happen next, whether I would get these cliched kind of responses that made my grief worse. But I couldn't not. Everyone knew that this had happened to me. So when I walked up, here I was with my boulder of grief that I carried around with me everywhere. And yeah, it taught me a lot about how to be with people and help people be with me and make them comfortable. And the reality of suffering in a culture that wants everyone to have a nice, happy web page. And right, and there I was, just bereft. So yes, it taught me a lot.
I hope we can be there for you in a much more present way as we continue to adapt and grow from what we're going through. And I would like to be a part of that.
I think the question that, as I'm reflecting, first and foremost, I want to say, Meredith, thank you for. I know a little bit more of your story because we work together. We've been friends. We've been traveling a parallel journey for longer than most of the people in this room. But I want to say thank you for the level of vulnerability that it takes to just reflect and share space with us in a way that represents such an incredible risk. Or at least to me that it does, because it feels like that's one of those ways that like we're good at like talking about taking risk in relationships in terms of like romantic relationships, right? Putting yourself out there, but we're not so good at talking about it in like every other part of our lives, like and we're in an entrepreneurial space, so like talking about forming partnerships, collaborations, or just the notion of like being a decent human being to someone else. Like the idea that sometimes the right thing to do is just to not be an angry human to each other, and like that kindness is not an awful thing, and maybe even perhaps morally right, but also potentially even right, like for a business.
Or left.
Hey! Hey!
Trying to switch up the language.
Justified? Yeah, no, wait, right.
Justinified? Okay. with that. Oh, I got you.
Meredith.
Just quickly, grief takes humanity into the halls of capitalism. People just can't, have to be a person with you.
Wait, sorry, can you put that another way? I didn't quite understand.
You're in work situations, you're in business situations, but and people have to shift out of that and be a person with you. They have to because of grief, and it just changes the whole dynamic of a workplace when one person is going through something like that.
Well, and I think that's what's so interesting now is this collective. The people I am most. I've grown up with severe mental illness in my family. I'm my mother's caregiver. So I'm very sensitive to and a big proponent of the healing and therapeutic processes available to us and throughout the different chapters in our lives. The people that I am deeply concerned about right now are the people for whom the last 6 years are nothing. Nothing's changed. Right? I'm genuinely like, I know it's a mental health crisis, but it's been a mental health crisis the whole time. But now we have this collective experience where we can actually, instead of feeling like we're upending the culture of our workplace or our family, we can collectively be in grief and trauma and also resilient and all the other things, but we can, and that's beautiful. That's a beautiful thing. Because, again, that's how we learn and grow alongside each other. So,
There's an opportunity for humanity to enter the equation, and grief, perhaps things. I was going to say pregnancy. I was going to say motherhood, but then I remembered, the thing that we do with that is that we give people time to go away, do that, and then come back. So how do we make our like public facing life, how to make our work facing life more human maybe? Or mission, vision, or our bill paying work more human perhaps? I don't know. I don't have the answers, that's why we started the podcast. If you're just joining us on the chat, thank you so much. This is Hope Hall, among other things, portraiture artist, photographer to Barack Obama, Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden. I want to call out, Shane in the chat says, they appreciate Hall's description of her profession as collaborative and centered on relationship. Yeah.
Well, and I think that goes back to what you're saying about shifting how we transform the workplace. We cannot do this alone. There are very few things that you can actually
Do alone. Did that work?
I don't know. I'm gonna get a little shouty while we figure out what's going on. But you were saying that there are very few things that we can do alone. But the people in the chat will still be able to hear us.
Okay.
The people here in the room a little less.
Are there any questions from the chat?
We have from the chat Majority Coalition Voting in 2022 channel. I'm Barbara, and I've had the joy of collaborating with Hope, and she's a brilliant soul with a brilliant mind.
Oh, thank you.
So,
Okay, I think we're back.
yeah.
One of my rejoinders whenever I'm, on a team and it's 2 in the morning and we're on hour 17 and everyone's exhausted, I'm like, yeah, but this is why we don't work alone. Can you imagine doing this whole thing by yourself? So the whole point is, how do we take the, essentially what is the human experience day to day and turn it into play,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yes.
otherwise, how is it sustainable? How do you make it? And I think that's my whole thing about learning and growing, no matter what's happening. You can fail miserably at whatever it is that you set out to do. Maybe you won't get this big thing. I hope you do. But it's not a failure. You worked really hard. You learned a lot while doing it. You will learn from, and I encourage you, if it doesn't work out, to do as much as you can to get as much information down the road as to why it didn't work, or, what a fit might be that is better for what you proposed. I'm sure what you proposed is fabulous. It's just about, one of the things my dad used to say is, and he was this like bootstrap Eastern Oregonian self-made person. He'd be like, the job is to be ready. You gotta be ready. Stuff comes along all the time. If you're lucky, really good stuff comes along. Once or twice in your life. But there are a lot of people for whom the fixation on their own narrative, the definition of their own persona, the ego attachment to the thing that they proposed to the world that they were going to do and then they failed at, takes them out of the moment.
Yeah.
I call it the golden bus. I'm just going to give you my golden bus theory really quick.
Please,
So,
go ahead.
I'm a big public transportation nerd. And so I love taking buses and trains. And so the golden bus is this. So you're standing there. It's commuter hour, right? It's morning or night or whatever. And everyone's standing there. And they literally look like seagulls. They're like this. Okay, here's the road in front of them. They're in the bus stop's behind them. The road's going this way, and they're just like waiting for the bus, their bus. The other buses come along, they're just like, oh, where's my bus, where's my bus? If you're lucky, once or twice in your life, the golden bus comes along. And if you are that person that is like, get out of the way, I'm just waiting for my bus, you don't notice that the golden bus has arrived. The driver has opened the gleaming golden doors and is like, here's the thing that you've always dreamt of. Get on. And you're like, move out of the way, I'm waiting for the 42. Right? But that's the challenge, is and that's the whole idea of softening so that you can be interwoven with other people so that then you can be gentler with your own egotistical ideas of who you are, who you're supposed to be, what your persona is, right? That's why we don't work alone, because it's better. People challenge us, they motivate us, they call us out on our stuff, and they're like, who cares if you get it or you don't? One of you is going to say that to each other, right? But if you were working alone, and if you were like, I'm just waiting for the 42, it's either this or I'm giving up on the whole thing, then you'd miss the golden bus. I hope you don't miss the golden bus. Thanks.
I'm going to come over here so that I'm on mic for the people who are here.
Okay.
Thank you everybody so much for spending your afternoon with us and into your early evening. We're just about at the end of our time, and the bar is already broken down. So grateful for, I just want to shout out first and foremost, all the people here in the building at Venture Cafe who are taking good care of us and who are letting us have this chat with them. Please give them a little round of applause, who are keeping us well hydrated and socially lubricated. Thank you. John and Steven are over there behind the bar. One of the assists from Vicky earlier as well. So thank you y'all. I do want to acknowledge one more time that while the ambiance is a little bit more chill, that we do sit on the land of the Lenni Lenape tribe and the Black Bottom community, all of which is unceded. But our last sort of bookendy question that we ask everybody who's on the show is, and this for you, Hope Hall, what do you want the world to look like when you're done with it?
Sorry to harsh the vibe.
Oh, you're not harshing it. Also, I want to say thank you.
Yeah.
Such a pleasure.
I'm grateful to have you.
Thank you to all of you for coming. I don't plan on ever being done. No, I mean, genuinely. I'm not a, I have zero idea what happens when this mortal coil gives way.
Yeah.
Zero idea.
Yeah.
As a crazy cat lady but with plans, I understand there is no ending. Nothing ends.
Yeah.
So all I can do is try to be here for you, to be in a relationship, to learn and grow as this plant that I am right now, and trust that I'm leaning, my little frame is hanging on the arc of the moral universe and bending it towards justice. We have to get better. We have to. And, things have gotten, over millennia, they have gotten better. It's not a great time to celebrate those victories or those steps, because we're in a deep crevice in history.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But look, if all we're doing is learning and growing, let it continue. How lucky are we to live in this beautiful place, at this moment, where we actually have autonomy and energy and resources to support each other.
Yeah.
That's our job.
Yeah.
So I look forward to doing that alongside each one of you.
Somebody should write a Tony Award-winning musical with that lyric. Friends who are gathered here today, would you please give a round of applause for Hope Hall?
Please give a round of applause for Pauli Reese.
Thank you. And friends on YouTube, thank you so much for joining us. I know you're going to see this about 30 seconds later, but every good night, and as our sign-off goes, may you have the uncommon good, to do the uncommon good, to be the uncommon good. Good night.